Venom. Spoilers. Welcome to the channel, I'm Hayes, I talk movies all day, sometimes I talk about games, so subscribe right now if you want to be entertained. And today, I want to talk about Venom. And why is this movie trash? Because it really shouldn't be a terrible film. It's about Venom, one of the coolest supervillains in comic book history. How do you mess that up? So how this works is I'm going to go through the movie, talk about all the stupid things in it, and then afterwards wrap it up with some final thoughts. So without further ado, let's see if we can figure out why Venom is so diseased. Alright, now Venom starts off with a spaceship crashing in East Malaysia, 20 kilometers west of Cebu. Nobody knows what happened, this woman's accent keeps changing, it's all very confusing. She says one of the samples got out, but they don't know which one, but they know they had 4, so if one is missing, then clearly it's the one you don't have? I don't understand why that's so difficult to figure out. The astronauts were carrying symbiotes from outer space. Now, one of the symbiotes goes inside an astronaut and takes over his body, which begs the question, how did they get a symbiote inside the containers in the first place? The astronauts are clearly no match for them. And if it was the case that the symbiotes collectively decided to play along so they can conquer the Earth later, bearing in mind the symbiotes can't break out of the containers, did their whole plan hinge on the spaceship just happening to malfunction and crash land in East Malaysia, 20 kilometers west of Cebu, which just happened to cause one of the containers to break? Because that's not a plan, that's an accident. And if it was the case where somehow one of the symbiotes managed to break out of the container, then why not wait until the spaceship had landed, instead of doing it when they haven't even entered the Earth's atmosphere yet, which risks burning up on re-entry, causes a crash, risks an explosion. Bearing in mind we found out later that fire actually kills them, yeah, they really didn't think this one through, did they? So now we get introduced to Eddie Brock. He's telling his girlfriend Anne to remember her helmets later for date night. I guess kinda implying he's safety conscious, but then he rides a motorbike with no gloves, pops a wheelie, and then lets her ride passenger in hills, so yeah, Eddie's kind of an arsehole really. I mean, if there's even a minor incident, limbs gone. Eddie goes to work where Marcus Alvarez is in charge of security. I don't know, I guess he left the biker gang and had to use his skill set somehow. Now Eddie goes to see Bossman, and Bossman tells him to go interview Carlton Drake, which was this guy from earlier. Bossman wants Eddie to just ask a couple of questions and bounce, but Eddie wants to interrogate him proper because even though his name is Carlton Drake, you can still tell he's Asian, so of course he's the bad guy. I mean, let's not get too progressive here. So after Anne and Eddie knock boots, Eddie notices a top secret email on Anne's laptop and enters her passwords, which she clearly entrusted to him with just so he can read confidential files on Carlton Drake. Eddie's kind of an arsehole really. By the way, did this whole plan hinge on just happening to notice an email confirmation on a laptop that just happened to be left on, open and out on a coffee table? Because that's not a plan, that's an accident. And did you notice when Eddie interviews Carlton, he says, let's start at the beginning, and then brings up his British parents, and then straight away he talks about all his accomplishments he made at a young age. Like, are you trying to make it so that Britain takes credit for the good parts of him, but not the bad parts of him, or what are you trying to say there, Edward? Anyway, the arse kissing doesn't last long. Eddie accuses Carlton of being a crook, and Carlton arranges for Eddie to lose his job. Anne gets fired as well, and is mad at Eddie, but to be fair, giving out your work computer password is a major security breach, so that's on her. I mean, I know you're not supposed to victim blame women, but this guy was both Reggie and Ronnie Gray. Why would you think you can trust him? But they show a scene with the escaped symbiotes in an EMT's body walking through presumably a Malaysian market, but everyone is speaking Mandarin? So did the symbiote swim to China? Or did the script writers just figured all Asian languages sound the same and no one's gonna notice? Or maybe this is supposed to be a Malaysian Chinatown and they just assume all Asians speak Mandarin? Or maybe this was an attempt at making sure that we'd always associate anything that takes over your body and makes you lose your senses to Chinese marketplaces. In any case, this film is pretty racist to be honest. And why would these gangster guys watch a woman turn her arm into a stabbing thing, slice a man's throat like Terminator 2 and think, yeah, we could handle this? That's some serious ego. So of course they all get killed, and then EMT's symbiote transfers into an old lady. Now it's 6 months later, Carlton Drake has murdered an unspecified number of rabbits and wants to begin trialing human symbiosis. Dr. Scurf only now realizes Carlton is a psycho and goes to see jobless Eddie Brock instead of, someone who can actually help. I mean, if you're gonna go to a reporter, maybe go to a reporter and not a former reporter? Like, what's Eddie gonna do? Blog about it on Tumblr? Then she says she can't go to the police because Carlton is dangerous. So again, what exactly is Eddie supposed to do? Wear a mask and pretend he's Bane from Batman? And at this point, Eddie Brock is a drunk at a bar. He's not even Eddie Brock anymore. He gives $20 to homeless lady Maria and tells her to not pursue her dreams of becoming a singer, then watches a shopkeeper get robbed and does nothing. What exactly are you expecting him to do? By the way, Dr. Skur's first name is Dora and she works in scientific research, which makes her Dora the Explorer. Also, did it really take old lady symbiote 6 months to find an airport? What was she doing, waiting for her passport to renew? Also, Sarawak is in Malaysia, where the official languages are Malay and English and not Mandarin. So yeah, this film is pretty racist, to be honest. So Annie is now knocking boots with Dr. Dan and still blames Eddie for losing her job, like it was his fault she left her computer turned on out in the open and gave him her passwords to be able to have full access to her client files. Eddie goes to help Dora the Explorer, and surely Dr. Skurf has to know that her workplace gotta be riddled with security cameras, and yet she's just walking around openly with Eddie by her side like it's nothing. I mean, are they deliberately making the women in this movie oblivious to basic security measures? This film is pretty sexist, to be honest. Anyway, Eddie breaks into one of the labs, steals the symbiote and kills Maria, the homeless lady, in the process, which all leads to a black man getting fired for a white man's actions, which was orchestrated by a Jewish woman. This film is pretty racist, to be honest. Also, Eddie screams like a girl. Eddie goes to see Anne and Dr. Dan in a restaurant, causes a ruckus, eats other people's food, and jumps in a lobster tank. The staff were going to call the police, but Dr. Dan said, "No, he's my patient. Let's take him to the hospital." Does that work in real life? Just tell people you're a doctor and it's all good? Did they even ask him for ID? And why is Dr. Dan helping Eddie? I mean, if he wants to be a nice guy, all he needs to do is refer him to another doctor instead of abandoning Anne to go take care of her ex-boyfriend, who's the reason she lost her job. Anyway, Venom's symbiote don't like MRIs, and instead of Dora to go explore new job options, she stayed, and of course she got found out. You know, for a smart woman, she's actually pretty dumb. Venom tells Eddie not to open the door. Then there's a knock on the door. Eddie opens it, and Venom asks, "Who the hell is this guy?" Surely Venom knows who Treese is because he would have seen him at the lab. And even if he didn't, he clearly knew he wasn't just a friend popping around for tea and biscuits, so the whole "who the hell is this guy" question is a bit pointless. They fight. Well, Venom fights through Eddie. And does Eddie just leave the keys in his motorbike? Because he started that real fast. And by the way, did his whole plan of escape hinge on him riding away after he left his keys in the ignition and his bike just still being there? Because that's not a plan. Actually, to be fair, ain't nobody stealing nothing in San Francisco. It is a pretty cool chase scene, but it ends with Eddie crashing into a car because he wasn't looking where it was going. But Venom, who previously seemed to be aware of all surrounding danger, didn't see the car either, so what happened there, buddy? Venom tells Eddie that the humans didn't find the symbiotes. The symbiotes found the humans, and they need Carlton Drake's rocket so they can rule the world, or, something like that. Here's the thing. Dora the Explorer said that the astronauts found the comets on the way back, which had presence of life, and they brought back some samples. So, did the symbiotes plan to hinge on the humans noticing the presence of life on the comets they just happened to be passing by on the way back? Because that's not a plan. That's an accident. What if the humans never saw the comet or took a different route? In fact, how would the symbiotes know the humans went out into space to look for life and new homes and whatnot, unless they were already able to come to Earth and spy on people? And if they can do that, why exactly do they need Carlton Drake's rocket? Because if they didn't know that, then they were literally just waiting on a comet for something to happen at some point, somewhere, someday, sometime. But if the symbiotes found the humans, that could mean that the astronaut was already taken over before the spaceship malfunctioned, and it was the symbiote actually flying the craft. But then, why go to Earth with only 4 symbiotes out of millions on the comet? Surely you could fit more than that on a spaceship. You could have 1 symbiote for each astronaut, plus 1 for each container because they can't survive in an oxygen-rich environment without a host. The point is, I think Wright's leadership skills need to be brought into question, quite frankly. And if, for whatever reason, the symbiotes could only get 4 on a spaceship, out of millions, why pick Venom, the self-confessed loser? You're really telling me there wasn't any better options? And if Venom knows what Eddie knows because he's inside his head, then why did he ask, "Who is Anne?" By now, Venom should not only know who Anne is, but know her computer password as well. But Eddie does mention that Marcus Alvarez works 3 jobs to support his family, which just goes to show, leaving the biker gang life can be tough. But it can be done. Venom calls Eddie a pussy because he wouldn't jump out a window. This is after Venom damn near cried when Eddie called him a parasite. Anyway, Venom kills a bunch of people and takes Eddie to the hospital, and Venom tells him that sounds between 4 and 6,000 hertz are harmful to the symbiotes. Now, we the audience already knew that, but it does still seem a bit odd that Venom would just say it out like that and then tell them that fire is bad for them as well, literally just divulging all their weaknesses. So of course Anne tries to kill Venom with sound the first chance she got. Venom escapes through the air vent and takes over a dog. And do people just let dogs walk around hospitals unattended? Why is nobody saying anything? Eddie gets captured by Trace. Carlton Drake gets his own symbiote, the leader, Riot, and wants to know where Venom is. Eddie doesn't know. Carlton should have killed Eddie right there. Instead, he sends in Treese to do it. Treese should have killed him right there. Instead, he walked him out to the forest where Annie Venom shows up. But here's the real question. Did Venom kiss Eddie or did Annie kiss Eddie? And why is Venom giving Annie orders to stay out of it when he's been inside her head and knows she's capable and they could use her help? This film is pretty sexist, to be honest. And why am I saying he? I mean, I know Eddie refers to Venom as a he, but is Venom a boy or a girl? Or does his gender depend on whose body is in? Is this a transgender allegory like The Matrix? I mean, it is set in San Francisco, so could be. Anyway, Carlton wants to fly the rocket himself with Riot so he can bring back millions of symbiotes. Venom decides he doesn't want that to happen anymore because on his planet, he's a loser, but on Earth, he can be a winner. So now he has to kill Riot and abandon millions of symbiotes just so he doesn't have to deal with his insecurities of not being liked very much. And this is the message that we deliver to little kids. And by the way, are the symbiotes from a planet or a comet? Dr. Scurf said there were millions of life forms on the comet. Why are they on a comet if they have a planet? Maybe they don't have a planet anymore? And if that's the case, then Venom is really gonna let millions of symbiotes stay homeless just because he can't get laid? Venom is kind of an arsehole, really. Venom and Riot fight. Venom has a strong host, but Riot has got shit you have never seen. And turns the sound frequency up, so now it's Eddie versus Carlton. But Carlton gets Riot back and stabs Eddie through the chest. And I'm no scientist, but I'm pretty sure Eddie was dead. But I guess Venom and the power of love was able to bring him back to life. They destroy the rocket with Riot inside, and the fire kills Riot and Carlton and also Venom, and it really should have killed Eddie too, but it didn't. And it turns out it didn't kill Venom either. He lived. I mean, she lived. Or they lived. I don't know, the preferred pronouns are never stated. But Venom lived and went back to Eddie, and we found out that the kiss was Venom's idea. So does that mean that Venom fancies Eddie? And if so, why does Venom want Annie and Eddie together? Wouldn't that be like a threesome? But Annie wouldn't know it's a threesome, so is that half consensual, half sexual misconduct? Stan Lee tells both of them to not give up on her. By the way, Annie is still with Dr. Dan, and they just talk about getting her back like she doesn't actually have a say in the matter. This film is pretty sexist, to be honest. It ends with Eddie saying he has the authority to decide who is good or bad based on his feelings. Venom eats a crook and the sky goes from day to night real quick. Or how long did it take Eddie to walk to a place he knew down here? During the mid-credit scene, Eddie interviews Cletus Cassidy, who says there will be carnage, which is either a setup for the next movie or a reference to the Rotten Tomatoes critic score. So before I give my final thoughts, if you liked this movie, check out these movies. They all feature the bad guy as the main character, and unlike Venom, they stay bad throughout with little to no redeeming features. And yeah, I know two of them are actually TV shows and not movies, but whatever, they're all great. And Sons features Emilio Rivera, who played the security guard in this film, so yeah, make time for all of them. Alright, so let's talk about Venom. Here's the thing, I'm not sure what this film is trying to do. And to be clear, I'm not saying it doesn't have a message or a deeper point. I'm saying I'm not sure I understand what that message is. Eddie starts off on top of the world. He's got a good job, people like him, he's about to get married, and he stands up for injustices. He's a pretty great guy. And it was because he dares to question those who abuse their powers the reason he ended up losing everything. But then what? Eddie does nothing. For 6 months, he's no longer Eddie Brock. He's done with all that helping his fellow man shit. But then he gets a Venom symbiote and now he's ready to fight for what's right again. Eddie is someone who only does the right thing when it's easy. The only exception is when he takes on Riot knowing he's got shit you've never seen. It just seems to me that Eddie starts off in a pretty good position, but over the course of the movie really just shows that he's a bully. Now, I don't have a problem with that. If anything, it fits in more with how I've previously known the Venom character from cartoons and comics to be. I mean, I know expert in that, but I've read a few bits here and there. The thing is, I'm not convinced that that is what the filmmakers were trying to do. Everything looks like we're supposed to see Eddie as the good guy and Venom as the bad guy turned good, but really, they're both egocentric assholes. All Eddie had to do was ask Carlton a few questions and leave. Instead, he jeopardized his company, abused his fiance's trust, and sabotaged his own relationship because of a hunch he couldn't let go. Whereas Venom was supposed to help the remaining symbiotes, instead, it was more important to him that he feels superior amongst physically weaker beings, which he does through fear. In the end, this movie is about bullies fighting other bullies and being sexist and racist along the way. And that is what I think of Venom. What do you think? I got the poison, or I got the remedy. Let me know down below, and while you're there, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a suggestion if you don't mind.